day 2 of Sundance, I mean, for us anyway, I think it's like day 8.
Yeah, something like
of
that.
The actual
you can
festival.
tell people are getting burnt out, especially the volunteers.
Yeah.
No.
No, they're still super nice and helpful.
Oh yeah.
We managed to pack in an extra movie than we did the first day, so we got 3 movies today.
Yeah.
Started pretty early, relatively speaking. Was that 11:30 in the morning was our first movie?
I think so, yeah.
And that was Little Monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one, that was great.
I loved
was just great.
I absolutely loved it.
It's like...
So, yeah.
Okay, what is standard non-spoiler, spoiler warning? Again, you know the drill.
Yeah. So Lupita Nyong'o is in the movie as a teacher.
Kindergarten teacher.
Kindergarten teacher. And the main character is an actor who I don't really know.
Yeah, some Australian actor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it wasn't... The director was Australian.
Yeah, it was an Australian film.
Yeah, an Australian, yeah. And it's a zombie movie. Probably it's the best zombie comedy I've seen since Shaun of the Dead.
I was just thinking that exact, and I've actually not seen Shaun of the Dead, so I can't really say.
And I hate Shaun of the Dead.
I was just gonna say. I have never seen Shaun of the Dead, but my first impression after leaving Little Monsters was, this was a better zombie comedy than Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't have the Edgar Wright dialogue, but who cares? But I don't know. Do you want to explain the plot, the basic premise?
All right, so. Kind of a, I don't want to call him. He's not.
The main character is a loser.
Yeah, he's a loser. Yeah. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he has no direction in life. He's trying to relive his glory days of being in a band and all this, and hit hard times. He's living with his sister, and has to take his nephew to school, where he meets Lupita Nyong'o, and immediately has a hard-on for her.
As does apparently every other father
yes,
of every
this
child
is an established
in that
thing.
Yeah.
And then he ends up becoming a chaperone on a field trip to a petting zoo, which happens to be right next door to a U.S. naval or U.S. military base where they're doing stuff.
Yeah, some kind of research,
yes.
Sinister government research.
Yes. One thing leads to another, and suddenly the entire petting zoo area is infested by zombies.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
There's another important piece of that plot that we have to talk about, and that's Josh Gad's piece in this.
Oh, yes.
So I'm notorious for hating Josh Gad. I have never seen him in anything that I've enjoyed remotely. I hate his mannerisms. I hate his style of comedy. It's a little bit like the Melissa McCarthy thing. He was perfectly cast in this movie. They actually found a role where he was really good.
Yeah.
And he really fit the part. So he plays this... Is it a children's TV show?
Yeah, it's a children's TV show. He's like a Raffi or like a...
Just a fun comparison.
Yeah, well...
yeah.
He's one of those cheap children's entertainers who has a puppet and has a cheesy voice and condescends.
Yeah, very much a pseudo-celebrity that nobody takes seriously and has a very large ego. And so a majority of the film takes place in his little... What is it, a museum or a gift shop or something?
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, so all the kids and the main characters hole up in the souvenir shop of the petting zoo, and blockade the doors and everything. But as soon as the zombie outbreak occurs, Josh Gad's character shows his true colors, and it's just wonderful because he's just such a dick.
He's so mean to those children.
As soon as his life is threatened, he drops all facade of liking kids in any way, shape, or form and just starts cursing them all out.
It is pretty incredible. There's a lot of the film focuses on the ways in which Lupita Nyong'o and the main character are trying to turn the situation into a game for the children, so that they can better cope with the scenario. And that dynamic was really interesting. All the things they did with that.
Yeah.
For example, there's a child who is completely obsessed with putt golf and asks over and over again, when are we going to do putt golf? And all of these things. And so there's a scene where they're driving away from zombies, and in order to keep the zombies off of the vehicle, Lupita Nyong'o has him take this little golf club and like bash at them, and just all kinds of things like that. But they really do push the whole making it into a game.
Oh yeah, they kept that through the entire thing, and it worked.
Yeah,
it worked
really
absolutely.
Well. I thought the ending was a little optimistic. I shouldn't say the ending. The main character's character arc, because he is a complete asshole in the beginning of the film, and he's very clueless about so many things. Very childlike, very much like Charlize Theron in Young Adult, something like that. And by the end of the film, he is very mature, and he has a wonderful way with children all of a sudden, and he's in love with Lupita Nyong'o. And I understand that his character progression comes from these awful experiences he's had, but it still felt quick.
Yeah, it was definitely exaggerated.
It was too black and white, and you know that's sort of the kind of movie it is. It is very over the top. Honestly, there are a lot of ways in which it was like Corporate Animals, in how over the top it was.
Oh.
But it took all of the things that movie did wrong and did them right. So, yeah, no, it was kind of the opposite of Corporate Animals for me. But I very much enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
I walked away from that thinking that may be the best one I see. But I did that with pretty much for every movie.
Yeah, and since it was only the third movie we had seen.
Right.
Yeah. So, immediately after that movie, like, literally immediately, we bolted out of there to get into the wait list for another movie, The Wolf Hour. Yeah, The Wolf Hour. This is a period piece set in 1977, Bronx, New York, during the Summer of Sam. And that's just used as a backdrop. Summer of Sam really doesn't have much to do with the overall story, but it's there. She hears stories on the radio, on the news and stuff, and it's just kind of setting the tone.
Yeah, it's there to fuel the paranoia.
Yeah.
So that one stars Naomi Watts. She is the centerpiece of the film because she's an agoraphobic, and she is in her little apartment, or her grandmother's apartment that was inherited after she died or whatever, and it's in the middle of a really bad neighborhood, and she is terrified to leave the house, and there is somebody who is constantly ringing her buzzer. So, of course, the film, not too heavy-handedly, plays off the idea that she may be crazy. She may have some kind of mental illness. I mean, clearly she does. She's agoraphobic.
Right.
But there are scenes later on where, you kind of start realizing, oh, this buzzer is real. And then, even further beyond that, it makes you question that, and the ways in which this movie played with my mind were really its strongest point, I think.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really interesting camera angles. It's such an enclosed space that to make that feel not so boring and bland is usually an accomplishment.
Yeah. I didn't even really think about it while watching it, but
it doesn't feel single setting.
The entire movie does take place within that apartment, until the very end. But and I mean, there's shots out the window and stuff, but there's never a street level shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's entirely within her apartment.
Yep,
and that's. I love shit like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way the story unfolds and the way we learn about Naomi Watts' backstory, a little bit of it is confusing, but it's confusing because it's very subtle, and that's really the reason it's effective. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. Did you recognize the actress who played her sister?
I did not.
I didn't either. I don't really think any of the other actors in the film were.
Honestly, I mean, I saw her name in the credits, but I honestly couldn't have told you that it was Naomi Watts.
Oh, what, really?
Yeah. I guess I don't really...
Actually, you know what? For the first 10 minutes, I didn't notice. And then there was a close-up shot of her face. They do a really good job of... Well, actually, I can't really say this was a makeup achievement. I think they just left off her normal makeup, and that's probably what Naomi Watts looks now. She looks very aged.
Yeah.
She has wrinkles, and in most of her films, she's fairly wrinkle-free.
Yeah.
Even nowadays, I don't know. I'm thinking back to like 2007, Funny Games US. She had perfect skin.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 12 years ago, I guess, but there was. She definitely looked different enough that I can understand being kind of confused that it was Naomi Watts. I feel like the less we say about this one, the better. I will say it's incredibly polarizing. It's a little on the slow side, and there are things that a lot of people, I think, are really going to hate about this film.
See, I didn't get... I was enthralled through the whole thing.
Oh, I was too, yeah. It's a slow burn, and I have very little faith in people's attention spans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, those
because
people...
subtitles are so bad. I can't be subjected to that. I have to pay attention to the film.
That's the next one. But, like, just leaving this movie, overhearing some of the conversation, those people behind us...
Yeah.
Oh, my God. They hated this movie so much because it was so slow, so boring, nothing happened. That was their words. I completely disagree with that.
So much happened in that
so
movie.
Much happening.
And there are characters that visit Naomi Watts throughout the film, and each one of them kind of has a role to play. And all of them, I think, did a great job as actors.
Oh, yeah.
And they were all very separate incidents that furthered the plot.
And and they're intriguing characters that make you think, like, did that really happen? Was this, what happened to this person? Things like that.
Yeah,
it was really good.
There was a bit of a... It's not a cliffhanger ending, but there's this teeny bit of ambiguity in the very final part of the movie, and I heard a few people around me kind of groan. Because we were sitting in different areas for that one.
That's right. It was a packed theater. We were way back on the wait list, so we ended up on opposite ends of the theater.
Yeah. So we got very different audiences, I think.
Yeah.
But I think both of them just really didn't like the movie. People around me didn't care for it. But I would really be curious to see how this gets released.
Yeah.
I can't see Netflix picking it up.
No.
Although Netflix picks up anything.
Yeah, at this point they will pretty much buy anything, but I don't see it being a hit on Netflix.
No, I don't know, maybe Sundance will distribute it? Or IFC? I don't know. That's it. Yeah, but general audiences, this really isn't quite a general audience movie, so I don't foresee it having much success in that arena, which is unfortunate, but it's also what makes that film special for the people who do love it. I really want to see the reviews for this because I have a feeling that it's going to be like a high Rotten Tomatoes score and a really low audience score. Those are usually my favorite films.
You love a polarizing movie.
I do, for whatever reason.
All right. And then, final film of the night.
No.
No?
There's two more. No, you're right. Final film of the night, sorry.
Yeah. We did 3 today.
Yeah. No, I got... Never mind.
Okay. Final film of the night, a foreign film from Brazil called Divine Love. This was one that I was super intrigued from reading the description. I had to see this one.
Yeah. And that one had an amazing still that described the film really well.
Yeah.
And gave you an idea of what it was going to look and feel like.
Yeah, I don't know if who writes the descriptions, if they're submitted by the filmmakers.
That might be. Because I've noticed in some of the world cinema descriptions, there's some really minor typos or grammatical errors that sound a little bit like broken English. So I think you're probably correct in that.
So if the director himself wrote the description, that explains why he put such emphasis into the stylization and everything, because he really painted a clear picture of what it was going to be. That was one of the more accurate descriptions I've seen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the entire idea of this film is that it takes place in I don't want to call it a dystopian future. It's not quite like that, but a different sort of future, but only
it
2027.
It only takes place about like 8 years from now in Brazil, where the government has shifted more towards theocracy. Though it's technically still secular, it's definitely dominated by Christianity.
Yeah. So the main character is a woman who works at this bureau that handles divorce filings, and because that's sort of against her religion, she tries to convince her clients to get back together through an organization called Divine Love, which involves a lot of religious ritual. It's like really screwed up religious couples therapy.
That's a good description.
Group couples therapy.
Yes.
If couples therapy involves sex, group sex. So there's a lot of sex in this movie.
Yes.
It's very unflinching.
A lot of stark nudity.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of penises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were.
There was more male nudity in this movie than female nudity, which I actually appreciate, because I get sick of seeing the female characters or female actors that are getting naked and thinking, oh yeah, the director wanted to bang that one.
Yeah. No, this was definitely for the purpose of art and art alone.
Yeah. There were a few times when I almost wondered, was this really necessary? Because the sex scenes are really long.
They're like single shot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They do not cut away.
Yeah, but as it goes on, you kind of see why they're that long. There are important things that happen that required that amount of time to set things up. So I can't really call it gratuitous. It's definitely a little bit uncomfortable, just because it's strange. It's really weird to see that portrayal of sexuality in film. And even when I think like anything that's considered really raw, realistic sexuality on film, it doesn't quite feel like this.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing has an air of fantasy about it. Like I said, it's like a dystopian future. But there are a lot of really interesting aspects of this film in regard to world building. There is a drive-through pastoral service, which I think was mentioned in one of the descriptions that I read. So it's that kind of world, apparently. The film opens with a scene that eventually becomes a recurring motif where people are at church, I suppose, and it's very much like a rave. People are, dancing around as if they were on ecstasy. There's all these neon colors.
They're high on God.
They're high on God. Yeah. So when the credits rolled, what did you think? Like, what went on in your mind?
Well, mostly I was just thinking, is the audience going to applaud?
I was wondering that
because there was a long pause before anybody started to, and it wasn't very raucous applause like we got from some other movies.
Yeah, that's true.
It was very subdued. Like, most of the people in the audience really didn't know what to think, but once they realized the credits were rolling, they were like, "Oh yeah, I guess we have to do this."
Yeah. I felt like there were probably a lot of mixed reactions, and there will continue to be. For me, at the very end, my mind just went blank. There's a lot of allegory in this film. you could say the whole thing is driven by allegory.
Yeah.
Not in the same way that it becomes the narrative like Mother, but there's very much statements to be made about Brazilian politics and.
There's allegory and parallelism on multiple levels here that the director was going for and trying to reflect, the current state of affairs in Brazil with the election of Bolsonaro and this kind of stuff, and how it is kind of, and a lot of nations are kind of shifting a little more to the right in terms of Christianity or just religion being the ruling factor in government.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
And
a lot of that metaphor reminded me a little bit of the documentary God Loves Uganda.
Oh,
Have you seen that one? Yeah. The all of the right wing mega churches that lobbied for anti-gay legislation in Uganda that involved executions of homosexuals. That's the realistic stuff that this is sort of trying to portray allegorically. So we had the privilege of seeing the director speak directly after. The person who introduced the film said something about how the director had goodies.
Yeah.
And that was never followed through
never
on.
Happened.
Yeah, so I feel totally gypped.
Huh.
I'm pretty
we
salty about that.
goodies.
Yeah, no goodies.
Huh.
No, it was a lie. But the Q&A was really interesting and very enlightening. What was that first question? It came from like the second row. It was something.
Something about the use of color.
Yeah. So there are two. I can't say primary colors. Predominant colors in the film.
There you go.
Yeah. Blue and pink. And there's sort of. I didn't notice this progression. This is actually something that I remember from Francois Ozon's swimming pool, where during different scenes, when something was happening differently, the color scheme would shift. And there are other examples of that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, overall, it was stylized with a lot of neon kind of colored light.
Right.
But there were some moments where there was heavily red light or heavily blue light.
Yeah, but the question was asked in the context of a shift.
Yeah.
Like when the movie became more blue and less pink, something like that. I don't know.
Well, there's that scene where she's like dyeing flowers blue, and that also played off of something that happened earlier in a conversation. And,
yeah. So the director kind of immediately explained the gender politics.
Gender politics. No. That was the thing too, because even just the use of color, he brought back to Bolsonaro.
Oh,
because he had said something about how. Or Bolsonaro had said, now that he's elected, boys will be wearing blue and girls will be wearing pink. He's going to put an end to that, crisscross stuff. That kind of thing. Yeah. So that was also what the use of color was there for.
Yeah. His answers to that question were pretty interesting. So the Q&A went in a lot of different directions. In part because there was a translator there, and you could tell that the filmmaker knew enough English to understand.
He could hold a conversation, but he couldn't. Yeah, when he really wanted to think of a detailed answer, he would just go full Portuguese.
Yeah, and the translator didn't quite get all of it. There were a couple of times where he had to whisper some things to the translator, and one time where he actually went over to the facilitator and whispered some things in Portuguese or whatever, and she tried to translate it.
It was interesting. It was really interesting.
I really wish I knew Portuguese.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the Q&A, there was one question that you just don't ask a director.
That when she basically just flat out asked him, what message should we take away from this movie?
Yeah. That was verbatim the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do we take away from this?
And to his credit, he didn't really answer it.
No, he didn't. No. He skirted it, but it was difficult to tell the spirit in which he was talking about it and how much that was skirting the issue because of the translation. like if he had some kind of a sarcastic, wry look on his face, then that would tell you something.
Yeah.
You know, that he is being evasive. The way he answered it, or the way his answer was translated, to me it almost felt a little bit shallow. Because immediately he talks about the symbolism in the film and the allegory of, you know, religion infiltrating state. And yes, he has already gone over that. We've talked about it. It's established in the description of the film. So, but he said more about it. And some of it was, I think, unintentionally elusive because of the translation. But there was some of it that, you know, it was very clear. He didn't want to actually say, what should we be taking away from the film? Right. So if you're ever at a film festival, don't ask a director that. That's a stupid question. And it's up to you. It belongs to the consumer.
And this is definitely a movie that you will form your own opinion about, try to figure that out, and you will need to see it more than once, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably, unless you're really familiar with Brazilian politics. I know personally I will want to watch this movie after doing some research, because I am not incredibly familiar with that scenario. But yeah, I think Divine Love has been, so far, my favorite of all the films we've seen at Sundance, predominantly because it made me think.
Yeah, no,
really made me think.
Definitely had more to say about this movie than any of the other ones.
And coming back to my feeling at the end of the film, and my mind just going blank, it's because there was just so much going on that I was like, I'll think about this later. I need to decompress this movie.
Yes.
And that's always a good feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just that utter confusion that a really complex and interesting film leaves you with. Is one of my favorite things about cinema. It's what separates a really, really good movie from, I want to say, a mainstream movie. Not all mainstream movies are bad, but you know, it's not popcorn entertainment, and I appreciate the intellectual side of the film.
So yeah. So far, it's been quite the experience, and we still have a few more days to go, so expect another one of these.
Yeah, and as far as when everybody else can see these movies goes, we have very little idea. I think Corporate Animals probably will get some kind of distribution relatively soon, especially because of how heavily it was advertised. Bedlam, who knows? Divine Love is something that I would almost wonder if it will be picked up and distributed towards next Oscar season.
That's
for an Oscar
a very good possibility.
For Best Foreign Language.
Bedlam, they said, would be airing on PBS in about a year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. In other news, I think you might be able to watch another film that's been screening heavily at Sundance, Velvet Buzzsaw, right now on Netflix. Really glad we didn't get tickets to that one.
Yeah, I don't want to pay for that.
No. But The Wolf Hour, who knows when you'll see that?
Yeah.
Just thankful that we got to see them.
All right.